Friday and you're watching FreightWaves Now. I'm your host Anthony Smith, and coming up, Andrew Cox is going to give us a DHL Supply Chain Pricing Power Index update. But first, we're going to go to Zach Strickland with the carrier update brought to you by PowerFleet. Stay tuned.
Welcome to your Friday Carrier Update presented by PowerFleet. I'm Zach Strickland, and hopefully everybody's had a good week and we can close the week off strong. So volumes have moderated this week as we've been covering, again, still higher than they were over the last 2 years over the same time period. You can see 2018 there in the green of the outbound tender volume index, 10,750. 10,996 as of yesterday for the outbound tender volume index this year. So volumes very fruitful right now in the market, and 10,426 this time last year. So 2019 may go down in history as one of the softer years in the freight market. Again, it's quite surprising to even me that we're seeing volumes at this level at this point. They don't appear to be falling rapidly either. So I think a lot of people were concerned about, is this a real recovery? Is this really going to stick? For now, it appears to be sticking quite readily at a higher level than expected. Again, this could be still part of that cranking the engine, getting things going, but it's not falling as rapidly as you would expect if this were just an initial bump. So statistically speaking, it looks like a trend of flattening moderately is forming right now, at least in the near term. So next week, we could be entering a standard June, at least in terms of direction and pattern for the outbound tender volumes. So like we were talking about earlier this morning with Mike Vincent for freight forecasting, this looks exactly like a pattern that we would see on a typical Memorial Day, where you have this lead in to the holiday and then a spike. You can see that clearly illustrated on each of the 2 previous years. You have a spike coming out of the holiday. So we may be entering back to business here as scheduled. So again, pretty impressive recovery pattern thus far, at least in June. So looking at our outbound tender rejection index over the top of the tender volume, you can see that rates, however, are not moving in the same way that they were the previous 2 years, maybe similar to 2019, but volumes really disconnected from the tender rejection index here. You can see that volumes did surge up there. That's the orange line that you're looking at, and tender rejections still staying down on the floor, 5.29%. Again, 2018 volumes with 2019 rates, not necessarily something you would expect, but again, it's only going to be a matter of time if these volumes stay at this level that we will see this bleed into the spot market and see some of that upward pressure on the rates. Looking back in March, you can see that there was a very clear relationship between tender volumes and tender rejection rates increasing, again, about 12%, 12 to 13% at the similar volume levels back in March as volumes surged so rapidly. We had a little bit more gradual lead in here in the last little part of May to give carriers a little bit more time to manage their networks more effectively. I don't think anybody expected near this spike here that they did in March. So where in the rest of the country are we seeing some capacity tightening? Well, not that many areas just yet, like we mentioned. Outbound tender rejection index still at 2019 levels, but we do have a little bit of movement. Phoenix, for instance, on the weighted rejection index, combining market share and tender rejection, having the most significant movement in tender rejections thus far, this week. But, again, Phoenix is still a backhaul market, still heavily negative on the head haul index for the Sonar users out there. Memphis, Tennessee, we don't talk about this one much. Number 2 on the list. Memphis, Tennessee, again, sort of a hub-ish part of the country in terms of rail activity, not necessarily a huge mover in terms of freight market activity. It was a historically more significant market back in the day, but still has a significant amount of volume moving out of it. So looking at the Memphis market, we've got a pretty big jump in volume here over the last several days. Tender rejection rates jumping well over the national average at 6.92%. So again, the Memphis market looking a lot stronger than you would anticipate during this time of year. The head haul index really strong at about a 44.38, indicating that we still have a lot of freight leaving the market with less freight coming into the market. So that means that trucks are not going to have time to adjust. So Memphis market heating up, and hopefully everybody has a great week, and that'll do it for today's Carrier Update.
The comprehensive logistics offerings from PowerFleet cover in-cab ELD, fleet management, trailer tracking, cargo monitoring, and tracking other assets such as chassis and intermodal containers. Power up your operations with PowerFleet.
Welcome to the DHL Supply Chain Pricing Power Index update. I'm here with Andrew Cox. Andrew, what's the latest?
Tony, so the carriers gained another 5 points of power this week. This is now 4 weeks in a row that they've come off the bottom, which is a series history back in the early April of 10 points. We're now at 30, where they're getting a little bit more towards a balanced market. And as Zach mentioned, this is coming on the backs of kind of the disconnect between volumes and rejections. We, of course, as Zach just mentioned, volumes are at a 3-year series high for this date on June 4th, much higher than 2019 and slightly higher than 2018. But as Zach said, there is a disconnect here between the volumes and the rejections and the rates. So I am with Zach on that side, that if volumes can stay this high and stay, if we see this new June normal somewhere around higher than 2019, then I expect rates to come up here in a little bit. But as the title of the article was, that the volumes are on full blast, but the rates are still just a dribble for these carriers.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of the mystery is around, is there's all these volumes being pushed through, but exactly where and what industries are really kind of facilitating all of this movement, right? Yeah,
that, and also I look on the capacity side. You know, we saw that things were really bad in the month of the back end of March and the beginning of April, and we haven't seen as many delinquencies and bankruptcies as we would once think. And so I definitely think the PPP and the government assistance has helped keep some of these companies afloat, as well as the deferrals on payments from a lot of their leasing companies or their financial institutions that are helping them. So again, those are going to run out soon. So we may see some capacity churn out of this market, but maybe not, because we are seeing a really strong volume number. We're seeing reefer goods being pushed to where a lot of this volumes are coming off the West Coast and in the Southeast and Southwest, where a lot of the agricultural hubs are. We're still waiting on that kind of manufacturing. We're seeing the flatbed volumes still haven't really picked up in a way that we would hope for. But that being said, we are seeing Michigan and a lot of the Rust Belt. We're seeing some growth in volumes in that area as well.
And when we're looking at where things are now, you just mentioned the PPP, that's really keeping a lot of folks afloat. Do you think that might be delaying the inevitable for some carriers?
I mean, I have to think so, really. I mean, rates being as low as they are right now, you know, them losing basically 2 months of volume here, I have to think there are a lot of carriers that are really hurting. So yeah, I mean, I have to think that there are going to be some carriers, there are going to be some delinquencies here in Q3 and Q4 pushing into 2021. We just haven't seen them yet. So, you know, I am definitely expecting them moving forward.
And it's been a while since I've asked you this, your outlook for the index.
Yeah, so my outlook is that, I think we're going to see capacity churn out of this market. I think we're going to see tender rejections. I've got tender rejections here. I do think they're going to rise up. We're just kind of this slow, steady grind up. In the green, we have reefer, and then overall in the white, we've seen a slow, steady grind up on that overall number. I think things are going to continue to rise up, especially with volumes as high as they are. I don't think volumes are really going to fall down. We just saw the jobs number come out this month. We're seeing some positive economic signs that we may be past this bottom and that things are looking up from here. So yeah, I do think that the carrier is going to gain some more power. I think we look towards more of a balanced market here in the midsummer when we're fully wide open and everybody is out enjoying themselves. So I think things are looking up for the carriers. They were in a rough space there for about 2 months, but things will definitely get better in the back half.
Excellent. And Andrew, as always, thank you so much. Real quick, where can people find more?
Yeah, they can go to FreightWaves.com/passport for all of our research. We just put out an email this morning. We've got 3 new reports from the Passport team, including one that I've been really looking forward to, which is kind of an analysis of consumer credit and debit card data, as well on kind of overlaid on our outbound tender volume index to see the correlations and what kind of the subsectors have the biggest impact and biggest correlation to the outbound tender volume index. So definitely, everybody go check that one out.
Excellent, Andrew. Thank you. We appreciate it. And thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for this week's update for the DHL Supply Chain Pricing Power Index. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for this Friday edition of FreightWaves Now, but the content doesn't stop here. If you want to look a little bit deeper into some of our insights, check out our FreightWaves TV app and all your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple TV. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.